Hi everybody, and welcome to this week's webinar. I'm Ollie, and today we're going to be running through company setup and management in Prima. If you've got any questions during or after the session, please do use our live chat service where Mike will be on hand to help today. Okay, so in Prima, you've got your company section, which you can see in the top left corner. Oh, I'm on the wrong screen there. Top left corner of the screen, and you can, from anywhere in the system, click New Record, into company, and then generate a company record off the back of that. So in the system, when you click New Record and Company, you are then faced with a few options in terms of creating that customer account. So basically what we'll be running through today is what involved in creating those companies, managing them, classifying them, setting up invoices. So if I just change the screen just for a moment, this is what's going to be covered today. So we're going to be running through creating a new company and updating the contacts and locations in that company record. Setting company defaults and mandatory fields. So what you can do is when you're creating a new account, if you want to make sure they've got certain pricing or making sure there's an account manager assigned to the company, those little fields you can basically make mandatory, and I'll run through that in the admin section as well. Marketing / classifying exercises. So what you can do further to the likes of the business group and give it a name and general kind of company setup, you can also go one step further and modify your own classifications and then classify the companies further. So I'll go through some examples which will make more sense shortly. Invoice setup, so setting up your customer for a single invoice by sales order or a merged invoice and so on. Pricing setup, so putting bands against the account using like the customer offers and things like that. And also the company grid manager, so being able to update companies in bulk rather than having to update your companies kind of one by one. What you can do is, if you're looking at a group of schools or something, search those in the company grid manager and make a bulk change to those accounts as well. Okay, so flicking back to the live screen, so creating a new company in the system would be via the new record, click company, and you're then faced with this box. So for Prima users that have been using the system for a while, this has been updated to include more fields on there. So effectively, when you come to this section here, fill in all the details, the likes of the account info, which is the account code, and company name, those types of fields, and then creating an opening. Effectively your account's ready to go with more fields in here rather than having to open it, go and update the information and so on. So effectively what you can do is, if I went to create an open now, as my system settings do not allow me to create an account without entering in an account code, company name, but also likes of a customer offer, that's all set within the admin, so that would prevent me from creating. So in the admin section, so logging into the Prima Cloud, change your application to administration, and coming into this section, you've got a system keys, so go into there, and then further down you've got company defaults. So within this section, some of them just explain exactly what they are. So as an example, perfect one to use would be this one. So invoice medium, mandatory on company creation. So that's set to no at the moment. So effectively what I can do, if I just minimize this for a section, is create this company without actually selecting anything from here. So how that customer receives an invoice. So I'll go through what these fields mean shortly. But effectively in your admin, you can set the fields that you want to make sure are mandatory. So customer offer here is mandatory. So before a user on Prima can create the account, you have to give it some sort of pricing. So those types of fields you can customize. So again, customer offers, you've got business groups, making that mandatory if you're going to be doing reports on schools, on solicitors, anything like that. So effectively come into system keys, company defaults, have a look through, and then from there then you can make some mandatory fields, and you can also set defaults as well. So if it was the default invoice report, for example, or the invoice profile, you can set those as well, so you don't have to do the extra clicks when you're creating those accounts each time. Okay, so what each field means now. So the account info is the account code, so abbreviated version of the company name, so it could be something like, if I just use web 123, not sure if that'll exist in this database, and then you give your company name, so I'll just call it the webinar company. You've then got your invoice profile, so from here you've got a select drop down of what the customer is going to be invoiced. So is it going to be a merged invoice? Is it going to be a single invoice per sales order? Is it going to be an invoice per dispatch note? An invoice per fully dispatched sale? So you can adjust these further on. So when you create and open the company, these fields you can customize also. If you do create something incorrect, you can go back and change that. Okay, and I'll go through that further shortly. Company type, so are they a customer, a prospect, a supplier, and so on. You can select those in here. Invoice date profile. So in Prima, what you can do, if it's set to standard, as and when the order's been dispatched in the system, the lines are then ready to be invoiced. If you set it to monthly and you give it a date of the 30th of September or something, then those lines won't show as available to be invoiced until 3 days before the end of the month. So same thing with fortnightly. So if you're going to set it to the 14th of this month, for example, then those lines won't show in available lines for invoicing until 3 days before that particular date. So it's just a way of hiding lines in available lines, even though it's been dispatched, to make sure your customer's invoice needs are met through this. Okay, account status. So the on hold or the refer to accounts. Normal trading, most likely going to be what you'll assign when they're a new company. Invoice report. So these basically are in Prima customized reports, which you can have. If it's going to be a merged invoice, you can then separate all those lines on the invoice by a reference, by a location. So it could be the case, there's one down here, consolidated sales invoice by location. Could be the case that you've got a merged invoice for a client, they've got 5 locations, and rather than all lines being scattered across the invoice, you can consolidate it by the location. It can have a summary page to say the HQ location spent this, the witness officer spent this, and so on. You can basically arrange that, and also it'll arrange the lines on the further sheets in the report too. So again, I'll cover that shortly. Trading currency. So if you are dealing with multi-currency in Prima, you can select what kind of company it is. So is it pounds, dollars, and so on. Invoice medium. So how the customer receives their invoices at the end of the month if you use the batch process. So in Prima, when you use the batch process, which is just grayed out at the top because we're not in the invoice area, but if you had 50 invoices in a list, 25 are set to email, 25 are set to letter, what will happen then is you hit batch process and it'll separate the jobs for you. So you don't have to highlight, print, highlight, email. The batch process will separate it for you. Account manager, self-explanatory, assigning an account manager to the account. So as an example, Andrea Connolly. Pricing print type. So on here is basically how, on the reports for that customer, how the prices will display. So if the customer is wanting to see the RRP, they wanting to see the net price, or if they're wanting to see what they're actually going to be paying, which is the standard, which is the kind of most common, you would select that. So standard would include the discount line from the order. So if you give them an extra 10% discount, standard will then include that on the report. So it just depends on what you're wanting to show to your customer. Business group. So you can say if it's a golf club, accountants, and these are all fully customizable per database as well. So if you wanted to have schools, high schools and primary schools, you can separate into that as well. So you can just add item, create a new one, and that's in a list then to be used in future companies. Customer offer. So we have got a webinar dedicated to this, but effectively in Prima, what a customer offer is a group of pricing bands in one offer. So this prospecting one here may have 3 bands, 4 bands, 5 bands in it, whatever it may be, with set margins or discounts against it. So it could be the case that they get 30% margin on A lines, 40% margin on B lines, 50% on C lines, and then when you effectively choose that customer offer, that inserts the pricing band automatically against the account. So previously, for the kind of historical Prima customers, you would have to do create an account, go to your pricing band section, add band, and add that in. But effectively what you can do now is have a customer offer set up, include all the bands, include all the values, and apply that then to your customer account. So a much more efficient way of setting up your pricing for your customer. If you're using Prima Go, you've got the option for web catalogs. So most customers will have one web store control company, but you can have multiple. So if you wanted a customer to have the web store control company of this one, which shows, as an example, the VOW products, versus this web store control company, which shows purely the spices, you can have customized setups to show on the web store effectively. Also got some option for some notes, some fields here which I'll go through on the next screen, and also you've got the quick options here to add in your contact information as well. So again, when you create and open the account, you can fill in this information as well, but what I'll do, I'll just give it some test info. So test, put in your information there, put in some location info, so HQ location, and again, fill all this out as much as you want to. Give the contact a position, so the operations director, project manager, receptionist, and so on. Fill all the information in, and then create and open, or create and close if you want to come back to it as well. So if you were to create and close it, you can then access the company from this company module in here as well. So create and open will then allow me to create that account and open the record up. So from there then what you can do is update the locations, add in some more, update the contacts, wherever it may be in this section. So you can see there the account code is pulled through, and so is the company name. If you do enter in an account code and it changes to an @ symbol, what that basically means is that there's already an account code in the system with that in. So as that's Web123, there's no other accounts in the system with that code, and that's pulled through automatically. If I try to create a new account now with Web123, then it would put an app symbol in, which is just a basic signal to say you've already got this account in Prima, give it another name effectively. Okay, so company names pulled through as well. So over on the right hand side, you've still got the options here to select if they want to be a prospect or a supplier, whatever it may be. We've also got some drop down options, which again, if you are kind of keen with the data and you wanted to put as much information in as possible, use these to the full effect. So are they a cold prospect, a warm, a hot? Are they a current customer? Are they a previous? And then are they a current supplier and a preferred supplier? So you can fill in this information as much as you need to as well. So on the left hand side here, you've got primary location and invoice location. So what you can have effectively is, say you had 10 locations in this list here. You could have one primary location, which is just the default that pulls through for your orders, so the kind of the most popular delivery address, versus the invoice location, which then is printed out on the invoice. So that's the company location that will receive the invoice information. So creating a new location would be a case of double clicking into here, which I'll cover shortly. Okay, got some basic information. When was it created? When was it last modified? Right hand side here, you've got the option for a parent company. So what you can do in Prima, again we've got a webinar on specifically on parent and child companies, is you can have a parent company where you control all the pricing from, and then you've got child accounts associated to that parent company, which for invoicing purposes or pricing purposes you can link all the accounts together. So it could be you've got a hotel that's got multiple locations and they're wanting to have separate invoices per company record, but you're wanting all the pricing, all the web store links all together, which you can use a parent and child. So that's covered in full in one of our webinars on the YouTube channel. Just above here you've got the carrier option. So if you mark a company as a carrier, so if it's going to be like a Hermes, a DPD, whatever it may be, then when you go to do your customer return, in the customer return section there's a carrier drop down. So if you wanted to say the webinar company is having a return today and it's going to go through with DPD, if DPD are created as a company in Prima and they're marked as a carrier, you can select them from the drop down and you can see that information as well. And when you print out the report, you can see all the information on there too. Account manager, so you can see that on the previous screen, but again, if you wanted to come in and update it from the drop down and select the user. Business group, same again. So some of the fields you would have seen in the new record option are they're all in here somewhere. Okay. On the right hand side here you've got the create contract button. So if they're a brand new account, they'll have a contract yet. So rather than going into contracts, into the contract area and so on, create an account or doing it from a quote or an order, you can create it directly from the company record too, which effectively if you're using Prima Go for example, type in your customer's contract prices and then set them up online and they're ready to go instantly. Okay, default reports. So if your customer prefers to receive the quote reports with images as a good example, then from there you can say, right, okay, that customer sales quote with images, save and close, then every time you go and do a quote for them, rather than having to do the extra click of dropping it down, clicking the with images one and sending, it's there by default. So that's a popular one as well, and that's per company as well. So you can use the grid manager if you wanted to do a grand sweep, which I'm going through the grid manager later on as well. Okay, so coming on to the likes of the locations and contacts, to create or open, you have to go into the location by double clicking, or the contact, same principle. So double click the location, and then if you were to create a new one or you're updating information in there, you've got all the fields accessible in here. So address 1, 2, 3. So most of the fields in here are self-explanatory. That error there is going to be fixed in the next release. But effectively you can type in the town, the county, postcode, and you can also set a coordinate, which then on the map you can see that information in terms of where they are on the map on Google too. So I won't cover all these fields that are self-explanatory there, so like town, county, email, website and so on. But what you do have here at the bottom is some delivery notes. So if you're wanting to put on some specific notes for that location, such as deliver to the second floor or leave with reception, something like that, or opening hours or something, you can put those notes onto there and that'll transfer through to your dispatch notes. Okay, couple of tick options and filters on the right hand side as well. So dispatchable orders only, self-explanatory. You can't dispatch an order in the system without the full kind of products being on there. Delivery charges apply. So if you're marking a delivery charge here to say, is it going to be the free over delivery charge that we do, is it going to be the furniture charge that we do, Liverpool delivery, etc., marking that, ticking that would basically mean they get a delivery charge against them. These tick options here, what you can do in the system is automatically purchase for clients and automatically authorise orders coming through from the web, which those tick options mean. As they're ticked, that would be set up for that company, but you'd have to set up in the admin as well. So as the auto sales and the auto purchase isn't set up on this database, that doesn't matter effectively until you would actually set those up. Okay, on your right hand side you've got area manager, so you can assign per location as well. Sales area, you can populate these fields if you wanted to add different areas in. So I know some customers do kind of like a coloured area rather than a north, a south and east, so there's different ways you can use that too. Dealer depots, if you're dealing with multiple depots, you can change that as well. Delivery type, is it going to be standard, pit wrap, direct by default? Van routes, so if you're using van routes like the POD app and so on, you can assign that location to a particular route. So then when you're going to do your manifest, which is for the pod, by default it'll try and put it into that specific route. So if it's assigned to Cheshire, for example, then by default it'll try and put that dispatch note for this company in this location into that van route as well. Bus stop would be effectively in what priority ordering you would want that to happen. So if it's number 1, that's going to be the first delivery on that route as well. Tax codes, if you've got a company that is tax exempt, you can mark that and so on. Standard rate, product default, you can assign those too. Delivery charges, again, we've got a webinar on that specifically, but you set your delivery charges up in the admin. Once you've got them set up, you can assign them per location and again through like the grid manager. And then delivery option, how this customer is going to have the dispatch notes. So is it consolidated, so multiple sales orders on one dispatch note? Do they require back orders, and does it have to be a single dispatch per order? And does it ignore back orders, so you can have more than one dispatch note per sales order, so it'll just follow through and ignore the back orders on that. Okay, and you can also exclude suppliers from pricing calculations for this location as well. So if they're based in a location closer to your spices rather than your Vow or your Exertis, whatever it may be, you can exclude the suppliers you don't want it to be kind of comparing against, and have that information in there too. Okay, so there's also a new button here for jump to contacts. So if you click on jump to contact, that would then take you through, if I just move this across, to your contact that's associated to that location. So as there's only one location in contact, they're associated. I can click jump to contacts and that'll then take me through to this test contact here straight away. So rather than doing that, you can close out of there, and if you are updating different things and coming back, double click your contact and that'll take you into the record. So in terms of creating a new location or contact, when you're in the area, click the page icon at the top, which is new, and then when I click that, you can see mandatory fields, what you need to type in, and then you can go ahead and update that information. Okay, so going back into the contact, didn't mean to close out of there. So you've got the likes of the contacts, the nickname. So some of these fields were introduced on the back of the integration with the likes of MailChimp, .mailer, and coming up, I believe, in Control as well. So you've got the fields in here to fill in as much information as you want to. So the Prima contact tag, if you like, is this one here. So that's the one that basically matters in the system, and that'll be what's printed on the report. But again, you can go further, put in your first, middle, last name, suffix, title if you wanted to go into that further detail, which posts across then to your MailChimp integration as an example. Okay, you can assign a position against them, so are they the receptionist, the security, whatever it may be in there. You can change what location they're assigned to, so if this contact is actually responsible for a different location, you can adjust that information too. Default medium, so how do they prefer to be contacted? Is it by email, by letter, and so on? Then these tick options here, so if they were the financial contact, then when you do your invoicing at the end of the month or whenever it may be, then the email that's entered within this contact would then receive the invoice at the end of the month. So if you wanted more than one contact to receive an email, you do need to put in more than one email in this section here, separated by the semicolon like that. So you type in your address, type in the semicolons, do your next one, and that'll send an invoice to multiple contacts at once. And then primary contact would be just a default that pulls through on your orders as well. So again, delivery notes, if you're wanting specific notes for that contact, so if they like to have a delivery to the first floor or the second floor and bring it to the desk or something, put those notes in there. And these notes field here, they don't pull through anywhere, but what you can do is just make some notes, maybe about last conversation you had with them, but you can use journals for that too. So this sort of notes area is just basic kind of documentation against that contact as well. Direct line, business facts, you can fill in all this information, email, all self-explanatory as well. And then the address information over here is not really used too much in Prima, but it's their kind of home address. So again, not too sure why it was introduced a few years back, but If you, for whatever reason, need the home address, you can put that information into here as well. Right, so in the bottom right section, something that you can, a part of the kind of the marketing and classifying your contacts and companies section, you can use these classification fields and customize them to your liking, and then populate the information as well. So what it would be, so it would be classification 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in here, and also the mailing list, which is an option 2. And then from there, then you can add in your own entries, such as, do they receive a Christmas card, yes or no? When's the birthday month, is it April, August, whatever it may be, add that in as well. Are they responsible for furniture, yes, stationery, yes, machines, no. You can put that information as well. So this is fully customizable. So these are just 3 examples of what I've got in this test database, and they can be customized within the admin. So there's another section within the company as well, in the marketing area, where you can classify your companies too. So if I just go into the admin, into general, and there's a section for user defined labels, and within here, so it's not just company and contacts, you can change the likes of cash sales, you can change stock labels and so on. But within here, if I go into the contact one, which we're in at the moment, you can basically change what classification 1 is called, which I've changed it to Christmas card. Change this one to birthday month. So if I wanted to put in something extra into here, you can customize it. So again, it is fully customizable. It's purely on kind of your basis. Some people may not want to do the Christmas card one. They might want to do the responsible for and do it in more depth and use all 6 classifications for that. So wherever it may be, set them up in here, and that then transfers through then to your back office as well. Same thing for the company labels, which I'll come into shortly. So when you're running then, or populating this information, which I'll come onto shortly, you go into your company section or your contact section, you can search specifically on those areas. So if you're looking for everyone in the birthday month of September, if I run that search, I'll then run a list of clients that birthdays are in September, and then from there, then you can export your information into like a mailing list or something, or get the telephone numbers and kind of action it from there. So little tricks like that you can do in the system. Okay. So other areas in the contacts is a web access. So there's a webinar dedicated purely to creating new accounts online and contacts. So for that webinar, check that one out for kind of full details of that. So basically come into here, username, password, and so on as well. Other contacts, you can view a full list of the contacts and quickly flick into that one rather than closing out and viewing the list within here as well. Okay, so that's everything for the main screen. That's covered. So if you have got any questions, Mike's in a live chat today, so please don't hesitate to ask away. So on to the next section is journal. So journals particularly helpful for making journals against quotes to say chase this quote on such a date, but you can also put general notes against the company as well. So as an example, if change address or change of ownership, change in size, whatever it may be, you can put those journals in, complete it, and it's basically a history then. So then any user in your system can come in, check that information, and go ahead. So again, there's a journal webinar specifically for that in full detail, but this is where you go to update that information. Okay, mail and report, pretty similar. So in the mail, if you came into here, you can send an email from Prima, which will then be associated to the outgoing mail against that account. So if you do receive incoming mail into Prima, you can, as an example, if it's like a change of address or something like that, you can attach the email to the company account as well. So that's what this mail section is for, sending and receiving emails in the system to that company account. Report. So the report within here is the company details or address labels. So if a customer requests what details you have on me, come to your report, go to company details, and obviously have a look at it first to make sure everything's okay. And you can send a copy then of a PDF version of exactly what details you have on that customer, and it can be customized in the report designer too. Okay, into the marketing tab. So within here, some of the fields I would say are probably not to use, the likes of financial year end, year established, registered number, office workers, things like this you can populate, don't get me wrong, but it's mainly for like a information purpose. On the right hand side though, probably the main focus I'd say is where you've got your SIC codes. You can mark those, but what you've got, again, coming back to what we said about the contact section, is you've got classifications in which you can customize. So this is all covered as well in the effective prospecting webinar we've done too. So there's a lot of references to the webinars in this session because there's so much detail that you can go into. You could create an account, put in a contact location and have done, but again, there's so much more kind of stuff you can do with it as well. So what you can do, back into the admin, user defined labels, company labels, and you can change what they are. So if you wanted to change business group to something else, if you wanted to change area to something else, and also your classifications 1 to 6, you can customize as well. So ones I've got in here are target product group. So if you know for a fact this webinar company, you've created them as a prospect because you want to sell them some paper, or you want to sell them a machine, or whatever it may be, you can add in the information here. So you can add in paper, pens, whatever it may be, and then from there, then multi-select if needs be, target areas, and then when you are running a search, you can see, right, okay, I'm going to send a mail shot this month for some great furniture deals we've got. Find all the furniture contacts that you're wanting to contact, and then send a mail shot off the back of that. Likes a current supplier as well, so you can put in likes Lyrico and so on. And if Lyrico are having problems with deliveries, or they're having a problem with something that you know about, you can do a mail shot, find all the contacts that are marked against that supplier, and then go from there. Client rating, just an example, if you mark them as like a gold customer, a bronze, a silver, diamond, just different ways. So the classification is 1 to 6, fully customizable, and every business does it differently, so you can use those to your liking. The notes section here is basically notes that will assign to your sales order header as like a notice board as such. So if you put in there, make sure customer receives Q-Connect over 5-star or vice versa, then that information then would be kind of, when you go to the summary of your sales order, that'll be kind of in front of you straight away as information as well. Okay, so into the customer tab, this is then where you go to set up your invoicing setup effectively. So straight away you can see likes the age balances if they've got that set up, and then invoice profile straight away. So those options you've got in here, I covered that briefly a minute ago. So no invoice profile, you shouldn't have any account set up in the system with that no invoice profile. They wouldn't be invoiced in the system if that was the case. Merged invoices would be if they've got 5 sales orders, you go to do the invoice, they put all 5 sales orders onto one. And as I said before, the reports you can use to separate them is quite popular as well. So if you've got a customer wants a merged invoice but separated by location, then you can do that. Or likewise, you can have a merged invoice by location, which is then if they've got 5 locations, they've got 5 invoices rather than one. And so it totally depends on what you wanted to do. Single invoice by sales order would be, as it says, you get an invoice per order, an invoice per dispatch note, an invoice per fully dispatched sale, so making sure the full order's been dispatched before you invoice them, and then merged invoices by location, but also cost center and department, which you can set up in these sections here. So if they have invoicing requests, such as they want to make sure they get invoices for the cleaning department, see how much they're spending, they want an invoice for reception, they want an invoice for sales, whatever it may be, you can set those up. Make sure they're mandatory using these tick options, which I'll run through shortly, and then when they come to be invoiced at the end of the month, it'll be all separated for them in their invoicing needs as well. Invoice date profile, so as mentioned before, if it's standard, they can be invoiced as soon as it's been dispatched. Otherwise, it could be the case you hit monthly, and then you select a date of 30th of September, is it, or is it 31st? 30th of September, and then that way then, on the 27th, lines will show as available to be invoiced, gives you time then to invoice them, and that'll be the information on that report. Invoice report, ignore that for the time being, that's in development. Invoice credit medium, so again, if you're using the batch process and they want to receive the invoice by email, this account, then set that up, and then when you do the batch process, it'll do that job for you as well. Pricing print type, so as mentioned earlier as well, some of these I've covered in the session too. So standard would be the actual price they're paying, so if they have got a discount against it, it would include that. RRP would be the RRP of the products, and net price would be the net price that they should be paying, even if they have got a discount against it. So the standard is the default, I would say. Again, these two are in development at the moment. Customer account code is what is linked to your financial system. So if you've got an account set up as Web123, but you're actually wanting to link the financial information over to Web456, you can change that in here, and that's the customer account code that it'll post to in the financial bit. Customer credit limit, so making sure they don't spend over the limit, you can assign values in there. Trading currency, if they're pounds, euros, dollars, and then send mail from, you can assign a default for this account to receive emails from. So if they say, I don't like receiving emails from sales, can you send it from accounts? Whatever it may be, you can set those up as well. Okay, so in this bottom section, you've got some tick options that may prove useful when you wanting to make sure they've got a cost center assigned, making sure they get invoiced straight away. Things like that are basically these tick options here. So the only one that isn't actually in function is this pro rata contract, so you can ignore that one. Okay, so order reference required, as it says, before you can authorize a sales order, you have to put in an order reference. Next one down, unique order reference required. So if the order reference has been used before and that's ticked, you won't be able to use that order reference. So likes of the NHS, for example, need to have an order reference per order. That'd stop you then from duplicating that order reference. Customer department required. So if you have got a department set up in here, which is just a case of clicking add, setting up your department that way. So the code is CLE and the info is cleaning, as an example of one of the departments. Set those up, and then once you tick that option for customer department required, before you can authorize your order, you have to populate a department as well. Invoice and authorization. So if you've got a bad paying customer, as an example, then when you authorize your sales order, an invoice is produced straight away. So before they've even been receiving the goods, you can get an invoice across to that customer straight away. Cost center compulsory, same as the customer department. If you've got something set up in here, whatever one you wanted to use, cost center or departments or both, you can then make sure that before you authorize the order, a cost center is populated as well. Mail and authorization. So when you authorize your sales order, rather than having to go to report, go to email, whatever it may be, that then pops up when you authorize the order to say, here you go, send this confirmation to your customer. Produce till invoice. So as it says there, produce an invoice on the till. Override references. So if you have got a reference on an order with this unticked and you've authorized it, gone through, you can't go back and change it unless this is ticked. So if your customer's giving you a PO number, as an example, at the end of the month, and you wanted to go in and change your references, this would need to be ticked. Authorize external orders and auto purchase. As mentioned earlier, if these are ticked and it's not set up in the admin, it doesn't matter. But if you are going to be using, as an example, when the order comes in from the web store and you're wanting to authorize orders that are over a certain margin, under a certain value, setting all your criteria effectively, and then choosing which account you want it to apply to. So you could have that set up in the admin, but only use it for one customer. It's just using these tick options in here as well. Same for auto purchase. Is this customer going to be allowed to auto purchase with like Spices, Vow, Exertis, and so on? If they're ticked, they can do. If they're not ticked and it's not set up, it doesn't matter. No direct delivery consolidation. So as it says on the tin, no direct deliveries can be consolidated onto one delivery note. It has to be kind of one order is that order's responsibility effectively. Okay, into the supplier tab. So in this section, once it's been set up for you, more than likely you may not need to come in here again unless you're updating your supplier's delivery codes. But as an example, if you're going to be using a new supplier that you've not used before and you want to set up EDI, this is the area you come to. So you can enter in, as an example, one of the EDI suppliers from the list. So is it going to be JGBM, DMC, CTS, whoever it may be? Select them from the list. They'll provide the username and password and supplier code, which is normally the same as the username. Populate the info. Put in delivery code such as the standard delivery code, which is normally STD. Put in your description. Is there a free value of the delivery? Put all that information in, and that's ready to go then for EDI ordering in the system. A new field in here is shortage action. So this, I believe, will be on the next release for you guys, but it's active in our alpha release. But receipt later would be, for this particular supplier, by default, the item would then go into back orders if you delete it off receipt note. If you want it to be by default a shortage, you can select return and reorder per company record or supplier if you like. Other references: supplier reference, supplier account code that we post across the financial system, credit limit as a reference, trading currency, and also some tick options here. So marking purchase orders as card payment. So if you call your supplier and pay there and then, when it goes over to your financial, you've got that kind of card payment information in there. Default supplier for direct delivery orders, you can tick that. That'll pull through as default. Including cheapest calculation when you're doing your buy-in. Auto complete direct delivery dispatch notes on invoice. So if this was, as an example, Vow we're setting up and the invoice drops in electronically and completes, that can then go back into the system, complete a receipt and dispatch note if it's not been done already, and do that for you effectively. Okay. Products and pricing. So in this section here, as I mentioned earlier about the customer offer, this would be where you go to update that customer offer if you wanted to. So you can set it in the first screen when you do your new record, but also you've got the option in here to say, right, actually, this isn't a prospecting price point, this is going to be a gold customer from now. Update the info, and that then change the discount bands or pricing bands, if you like, in this section here. So if you weren't using customer offers, so if I just change that, they've got no bands against them. You can add bands in kind of manually and as you want to, but setting up customer offers in the system is a more efficient way of saying, actually, this one's a silver, save that in, and then all your bands that are assigned to that customer offer would then populate in here as well. Okay. On the right hand side here, you've got the option for kind of the web setup and giving you some information in terms of what they can see online and what the prices is. So this particular company account uses catalogs from this one. So if they're wanting to have their own catalogs on there, so they don't want to see the spices discount, they want to see VOW, whatever it may be, you can set those up in here. But what it could be is in the web store control company, what they have is the VOW, the spice, the Antalis, but you want to assign to this company account to have also DAMs, also trade supply, whatever it may be. You can then add in those publications or mailers into this section as well, onto there. If you are creating a web store control company, so you wanted to set up a secondary one, if this was the account, tick that, or select that rather, and that would then be a web store control company. So only use that for when you're setting up like a company to be specific for your pricing and products online for the web. Okay. Alternative products, you can add in alternative products here. So if they wanted to have, every time they entered in KF24001, it switches to a 5-star product, whatever it may be, put those in here, and then for that particular company you can have that information updating as well, and you can do that per location as well in here. Well, the supplier's pricing calculation can do, from here, where you can add the supplier in, say actually for this company, as they're based down south, I don't want them to be receiving price comparisons with a supplier that's based in the north, so exclude those from those pricing calculations as well. Also web pay type, so from here on the web store, do they pay by account or do they pay by card by default on there as well. Okay, I'll come out of this account, but what I'm going to show you now is the customer review, so accessing the information in the system such as the pricing info against that account as well. So if I just go into companies, I'll give you an example actually while I'm doing this of how you can find particular customers. So for new customers in Prima, you can search for an account code, company name, postcode, and also a company type, so is it a customer, is it a prospect, and so on. But what you can also do, if you click this coloured bar or this arrow over here, X ends a search, and if you have changed the classifications 1 to 6 and so on, or populated the customer offers, whatever it may be, search on those and you can find the account. So I'm going to be searching for my test company, so I'll just search by company name on this instance. That returns the results, and then you can open your company record up in here as well. Okay, so if I was using the customer review, what this would show me then is that customer's spend. So it'll give a breakdown of contract versus non-contract spend, order summary analysis, it'll give a usage and so on. So from this report you can go into the criteria and change it to last month or last 6 months, whatever it may be. It's perfect for sales reps on the road. They want to see kind of a flashpoint of the figures before they go and see the customer. So you can see there, this is purchased for this year, for this customer, contract versus non-contracts. So it's a really good visual report that you can sit down with your customers and say, right, okay, you spent this much this month, but not so much this year. Why is that? Can we look at different areas of the business? So scrolling down and through, got top 30 products by quantity, order source, order in habit, top 30 by value. So if there's 30 products on there, which this is just a test database, it will populate obviously the full 30. Product classification analysis, so they're buying a lot of office machines, they're not buying as much computer software and so much, but you can also set in the criteria whether you want to show the products they're not buying. So if I go into here and say show me everything in there rather than under what's at 3%, then that'll populate and show me all classifications in the system, even if they've not bought them. So then you can see the kind of the gap areas that you're wanting to target. So if they've not bought paper from me, they've not bought pens, that'll populate in that sheet now. So if I just go back to that, there you go, and you can see then exactly what it is. You can filter out if they've not spent more than 3% in this area, as it was set to hide it. And then on the final page, you've got your cost center analysis if you're using cost centers too as well. Okay, a popular query that we have is how can I check a customer's history directly from the company record? And what you can do for that is you've got a price check option at the top there. Click price check, and you can, as it says in the tin, check a price of a product with them. But you can also click onto the price history option and then search on that customer's history and create an order from there or a quote and do that sort of thing as well. Okay, so that's pretty much everything from the company point of view. One last thing is the grid manager. So when you're searching for contacts or locations, same principle in terms of going into the area, extending the search if you need to, and filtering out. But what you can do too, rather than updating companies or contacts or locations one by one, you can come into the company grid manager, and then from here Same kind of thing in terms of searching. So if I want to find all customers created in a certain period, so created today, then what I can do is search for that. There's only 2 companies that have been created today. Go to the result, adjust that if I need to. So if I don't want to update this one, move it from the grid and I'll just update this one in the change. And then most of the things you've seen on the previous screen, such as updating the invoice profile, the date profile, customer offer, you can do this in bulk. So if you all of a sudden created customer offers, rather than going in one by one, you can then say, actually, for these accounts, I'm going to apply them to the gold customers. Apply that, and it does the job then for multiple accounts at once rather than one by one too. So the Grid Manager is a really effective way of updating bulk records. Okay, well, that's everything for today's webinar. If you do have any questions, myself and Mike will be on the live chat for a little while after the session. But thank you for your time today, and I hope you all have a great weekend.